a big honor to be speaking for Choleh Yungelite. I looked through, I have Shiurim that I've prepared for all kinds of crowds, but I never did a shir for Choleh Yungelite. It's very intimidating. When I was in Choleh, I went to Rabbi Heller once. I had a shaila in Hilchos Erevin. It was a complicated verplanteter Sache. So he says, "Was darf ich sich mutschen? Geht eine von der Choleh Yungelite. They learn doch das, and they'll answer you right away." So it's a tough crowd to speak before. Mustami, you know more than me. But proven a little bit of experience and so not so much the direct halacha, and for sure not the pulpula, but practical questions. Hopefully, I have a little of experience that I will be able to share with you. So. There was a couple that were expecting a child, Baruch Hashem, and time came, it's Shabbos, and she goes into labor, and they learned that it's better to call a guy. It wasn't a matzav bowl, they had time, and appropriately they called a Gayish a taxi, that they should take them to the hospital. But they were worried that a chagav, when we say v'olitzin v'loi nelid labahala, so the Hatzalah member, Leinelid la Bahala, means as me get mit a Bahala to have a baby. But they called it the car service, and they were chayish that the taxi company is going to send a yid who's not Shemer Shabbos. And you call a Gayish a car service. Sometimes a yid shows up. So they told the dispatcher, they say, please, if you could send a non-Jewish driver. No, they get all kinds of interesting requests. The customer wants non-Jewish. So they dispatch and this and that. Finally, the car comes, and the couple is getting into the car, and they hear in the radio the dispatcher say to the drivers, "Did you have a chance to pick up those anti-Semites yet?" No, shteitach. You're learning now. The Rebbe brings it also from the Yerushalmi. The shayil is a shayfich damim, and a nishal is a meguna. And I heard once from Yingi Bistritsky that he asked Shailish, wasn't on Shabbos, but about Hilchos Shabbos, he asked Reb Zalman Shimon, Alav Shalom Devarkin. So Reb Zalman Shimon told him, Tut merer frekt winziker. No, it's the same theme, but in a situation, on Shabbos, you're not supposed to go looking for a Rav, and you're not supposed to ask, and you have to teach the Eilam that you have to do right away as quickly as possible. But for sure, it behooves us to know the halacha, so you're supposed to ask before and know what is and what isn't, and most importantly, how you're going to know what's a pikuach nefesh. Once it's a massive pikuach nefesh, you know you're not supposed to ask. Go, do whatever you need to do, the most quick, the fastest and best, most efficient way. But you have to know what is matzav of pekuach nefesh. Yeah, in Shulchan Aruch is brought a whole list of things. What is it? Grav hayad, here is and here is not. So for shteitzach, that's not pshat that you're not supposed to ask and learn and know as much as possible before. You have to know. Who's called a Rav b'negeya pekuach nefesh in Yanim? So I had once an experience personally. I was in the country near Gan Yisrael is a bungalow colony called Neville, and there was a Rav there, a Litvish, Shaykhis to Lubavitch too, but then by the Welt he's a big Rav. Und sicher halt sich für a größer Rav. And so somebody there burnt themselves, one of the women burnt themselves Friday night by lighting the candles. Wasn't Oyim V'noira, but it was a significant burn on her arm. And no, I was a young, fresh Hatzalah guy then. It was 25 years ago, and they called me, and I come, and I bandaged it, and I said, they should go to a doctor and see if it needs to be cleaned better, and antibiotics need to be applied. Silverdine was very popular. Now it's not so popular anymore, but then it was very popular. And sometimes you even need to take antibiotics by mouth for a burn to prevent infection. No, so he was the Rav, and he was a relative grade, and he says, Mayem kumteis, that it could wait. He doesn't see why it has to be done now, Friday night. It could wait till after Shabbos. The next day, it got pussy, and it got red, and it got infected Shabbos morning. So already, then it wasn't a question anymore. They had to go, and they found a doctor, and he was able to give her, clean it up and give antibiotics, but now it was already dealing with a much more complicated situation. So he came over, which was very nice. He came over to me later, and he said, I learned a lesson, that when it comes to inyanim of Pekuach Nefesh, the Hatzalah members are really the Rabbanim. He was that he took the achrayus on himself, and he realized he made a mistake. At least he had the courage to come and admit and say that it was a mistake.
When it blew up, that was a consequence?
When it got infected, a person's arm gets infected, of course, an infection is for Choleh matzav of Pekuach Nefesh. Well, we will have a chance to review. I'll give some examples, and anyone will be welcome to ask whatever if they have a question, if something is or isn't. Another thing that was that when I joined Hatzalah, the coordinators had gone to one of the Rabbanim and said that they feel that Lav Dafka Hatzalah members need to carry radios on Shabbos. It's a long time ago, it's more than 25 years ago. At that time, they went to one of the Rabbanim, a Lubavitcher Rav, and they said they feel that if the Hatzalah members have a radio in the house, and they could keep one in Shul. So how long does it take from when you leave your house until you get to Shul? So it's a few blocks, maybe someone takes 10 minutes to walk, but there's other Hatzalah members, not all going the same time, and they felt that it's not necessary, and the Rav said, fine, if the coordinators feel it's not necessary, for sure, don't carry a radio Shabbos. So that was the matzav when I joined. I came in as a Hatzalah member. The members were told not to carry their radios on Shabbos. So I was a new paramedic then. There was not a lot of paramedics. I don't know if most of you maybe don't know how the structure goes, but in EMS in general, in the Goyish EMS world, and the same in the Hatzalah world, you have two levels of care. You have something called basic life support. Every EMT can provide basic life support, could give oxygen, could stop bleeding, could do certain things. It's becoming better and better at what they're allowing them to do, Baruch Hashem. And then a higher level called advanced life support is paramedics. It's much, much more training. The training is more than 20 times as long and difficult and expensive and equipment and chulu v'chulu. And when I joined, I was, I think, maybe only the third paramedic to be in Hatzalah. Yossi Simpson from the Lubavitcher Yeshiva did, and Baruch Grossman, who now became a doctor. Those were the only two Hatzalah members that were paramedics in Crown Heights. It wasn't that there were a lot. There were very few of us. So when I joined, I found myself walking in the street from my house to Shul, and I'm walking by, and I see that the ambulance is parked over here. I don't even know there's a call because I left my house. I don't have a radio on me. And again, there were EMTs there, but there was no paramedic there. And there would be no way to reach me. We didn't have cell phones yet at that time. So it bothered me. It didn't make sense to me. I went to Rabbi Heller. I was sitting in Choleh then. I went to ask Rabbi Heller what he thinks if the Hatzalah members, I was asking about myself, should be carrying the radio on Shabbos or not. And I said a second question, if yes, regular or with a shinri. So Rabbi Heller said he has to think about it. He needs a week. I should come back in a week. First, he says, start to carry the radio this Shabbos right away. However you want, with or without. But for the lahaba, I have to think it through. I have to think about it. What is the diyun? It's a real shaila, because you could just say to carry with a shinui, why not? Right? You should be hakala kal tchila, why not? So I imagine that I didn't go through the whole thing with him. I imagine that his suffix was like this. Moshe Feinstein has a shitta that a Hatzalah member's radio is like a badge for him. It's not called a masa. A Hatzalah member is very proud to be a Hatzalah member. And how do you identify yourself as a Hatzalah member? You have the walkie-talkie. It's the Hatzalah member. So it's like a badge. He held that it's not a B'chlal. He held you don't have to carry it with a shinui. You could walk with it in the street, Shabbos, like you would wear any other part of badge of honor.
I finished learning Hilchos
Eitzah. Yeah. So now, imagine someone wears a badge and he wears a badge upside down. It doesn't make sense. If you're proud and that's your heter that you're allowed to walk and carry, So dafka, you carry it in the proper way, and you don't do it with a shinoi or nish. So he said he has to think. And I came back to him after a week, and he says, I need another week to think about it. L'poil, after 2 weeks of thinking about it, he told me I should carry it, and I should carry with a shinoi. And shortly after that, all the Hatzalah members again started to carry the radios again. But it was just an interesting thing, and not always is your first impression the correct impression.
Now they all carry with the shinei?
Everyone carries. I tell them that Rabbi Heller told me to carry with the shinoi. If a member dafka wants to rely on Moshe, the way Hatzalah is right now is that every neighborhood, the central Hatzalah in Flatbush, there's an office where there's secretaries and the licensing is done and all the dispatching is coordinated from. So they have a board of Rabbanim. There's a board of Rabbanim who answer the Chevra Hatzalah general questions. And it's put together from Litvish Rabbanim and Satmar Rabbanim and other Rabbanim. It's well done and they all get along and it works well. And those are for general shilas. But then when there are specific questions that each neighborhood has, if I have a shilah, I have a right to go to the Lubavitcher Rabbanim and they ask him for me how we should fare zach over here in those pratim. Flatbush has their own Rabbanim and they do things in some cases differently. And in Williamsburg they do something differently. And we'll talk about in a minute one thing which is very, very interesting, very fascinating. Actually, you're learning about it. I see the big Shulchan Aruch, it's there in the Nesei Kelim, and in the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, it's something that's really mavel, very, very unusual.
How do they carry with the shinoi?
So, I carry my radio. There's different ways. I heard once from Baruch Grossman, that Rabbi Marlow Alav Shalom told him that he should wear a belt over his shoulder, and it should hang like this on the belt. That was one example. That's a little too elaborate, but instead of carrying on my belt, I put it hanging inside my pocket. Too many normal people don't wear their radios like this, so I think that's cost. In the old days, the radios were big and heavy. I can't tell you how many pants that tore carrying like that. Every few months, I had to buy a new pair of pants. Now, Baruch Hashem, they're small and they're light, and it's not so difficult.
What's the head to go to shul? Maybe Hatzalah members should stay home.
In the Chanami, but geschmust wegen dem. And that was one of the things how the whole discussion came up originally. But that's why they said, okay, I'd rather leave a radio here and leave a radio over there so that I could have both. But you're right. He would have said, if you can't, so taka, stay home. But L'Poil, we don't want to make things so difficult for the Chavrei Hatzalah that they should, right? We don't want to make people not have a life. If we're going to say you want to be a Hatzalah member, you not only have to go on a kol Shabbos to give up your whole Shabbos. You can't go to your sister's making Shavah brachas. You can't go because you can't take your radio. You're going to take. You're not going to take. There's a limit. But if you say 1 minute, okay. But if you say that it's like a badge, that there's a svara to say that it's mamish lechatchila, then it's not even a if you say it's with a shinoi, and if you hold that there's no rishus harabim, so then it's mamish a right of shvus to shvus. Yeah, you were saying about
That's what I'm saying. That says they have to come back from the hospital.
for the Chavrei Hatzalah to come back from the hospital. We will get to that.
Anyway, they might have another call.
Zugamen in the ganze share. I'm not going to have anything left to speak about. Okay, so now try to touch a little bit on this inyan of emergencies and what's called an emergency and going and coming back. I think there'll be more questions about what's an emergency and what's not, and probably everyone has different things, so maybe we'll wait a little bit with that. But, okay, let's go to coming back from the hospital. First of all, what about the patients who are going to come? If you're going to be a Rav, you're for sure going to be asked this question, right? And we have it all the time. What happens? You take somebody to the hospital, or even before you go, they ask you, what's going to be? It's Friday night, and if I'm discharged tonight, 12 o'clock at night, they tell me I could go home. What do I do? It's on people's mind. Right? Versteht sich, we're not talking someone who's mamish in cardiac arrest and they're not breathing, they're choking, they're not worried about that. But we're talking about someone who has pain in their stomach, abdominal pain. It might turn out to be a big deal, an appendicitis, and need surgery and all that, or it might turn out to be constipation. They tell you take 2 chveis and go home. Now it's 12 o'clock at night. Could you go home? Should you go to a closer hospital, maybe like downstate, where you're able to walk home if they send you home, or not? You want to go dafka to NYU because it's a better hospital, or should I go to downstate where Khalil, if it turns out to be surgery, I'm stuck with a poor hospital and a poor surgeon? Rather be in a better. That's the holidays. So you have to try to go to the reife that's a mumche, even if it involves more Chilul Shabbos. So all the paskim already paskind that if there's a child involved, meaning that the patient is a child, or the mother is nursing a child at home, that she needs to get home to take care of a young child, whatever it is, if there's a tzeref for a child, so we already know that every child, all the tzarchim of a child, should even have a din, are called a chayla she'em b'sakana. All the needs of a child, a kid goes, he stepped into a pile of mud. Yeah, baby, 2-year-old stepped into a pile of mud, he's out dirty and schmirt and whatever, and you need to give him a bath. So halacha mefereshes in Shulchan Aruch that he has the same din as a chayla she'em b'sakana. You could ask the shiksa to wash him. If there's no shiksa and you want to do with a shinui to turn on the water, that's the halacha. The tzarchim of a child are like a chayla she'em b'sakana. So kol shekain, a child who's really sick, you went going to the hospital with them, and they're told they could go home. So you're allowed to ask a Gaisha car service to drive them home. It's a shvus. You're allowed to do that.
Is it a shvus? Will take a
Huh?
taxi?
Why not? You
Pressure
can
is
ask
not
that.
making
Yeah, it's
more
going to be a
than
good. Huh?
You're weighing down the car doesn't make
That's right
Give you a
there.
voucher. You don't even need money.
Very often the hospital will call for you. Many of the hospitals have now that they'll have they'll either a voucher that you pay late that you don't have to pay, or a car service that knows that they'll call after Shabbos. They'll call you and you'll give them the payment after Shabbos. But the truth is, even if you must pay the guy, you could pay the guy also as no isser derai. So you tell the guy to come to your door. First of all, they should open the door as the lights are going on and off. Usually you say to the guy, can you please open the door? You're a mother with a baby. He's happily going to open the door for you. And you tell him, wait a minute by the door of my house and I'm going to bring you money. So money is muktzah, of course. It's a shvus. But again, you're allowed to be over on shvus in order to take care of a child. Either for the child being the patient or the mother is the patient and needs to get home to young children at home that need her. That's already in Shmer Shabbos Kol Chassid. It's already printed and all this fun.
So what age are they?
Oh, this is a little complicated. To me, I always assumed that it meant until Bar and Bas Mitzvah. I heard Rav Brain once say something which seems correct to me, that it might make a difference b'negei what kind of thing you're talking about. B'negei some things, it might be a 2-year-old. If you tell a 10-year-old who got dirty and you tell him he can't take a bath now because it's Shabbos and you wash him off with cold water, that would be fine. So you should be over on a Isser D'Rabbanan to help a 10-year-old take a bath Shabbos? Probably not. So he talks about it that different paskim have given different ages, and that the way he thinks is that it depends on each matzav, and each matzav might depend whether that situation requires to go. But for sure, not to be stuck in a hospital full of germs is any age till bar and bas mitzvah. That I'm saying myself. That till for sure, to be able to go home from the hospital, I think applies to any aged child. I don't think that's specific to a 2-year-old more than to a 10-year-old, that you shouldn't be sitting in a waiting room the whole Shabbos with people coughing and diseases and stuff. Now, I tried to get a heter once from Rabbi Heller for an adult to go home from the hospital, and I told him, Cheshbon, that sometimes the patient's not going to want to go to the hospital unless I tell them, don't worry, you'll be able to go home. So, right? He did say from the same svar I wanted to use for patients. He did not want to give me a heter. He backed it like this and he did like this. He was not ready to give me a heter that a fully grown adult who's told by the hospital that they could go home and that they're fine should be able to go home with a guy.
What's the yildus?
A yildus is still a chayla because, right, and you're learning it now as a part of Shem Chav Cheser, it's separate, that until there's one together until 3 days and until 7 days. So she's still in the classification of a chayla sheyesh b'sakana. Now, almost every hospital around here will allow her to stay till Matzah Shabbos. Very unusual that the hospital should say to her, you must leave Shabbos morning 10 o'clock. They know the people over here. Any local hospital here knows that the Jewish patients are going to stay till after Shabbos, and it's not a problem, and they let them, and you have a comfortable bed, and you have a nice room. So, Pashtus, it's not a problem, but if it turns out to be that there's no other Eitzah, so she has a din of a chayla sheyesh b'sakana. We're not going to make her wait with a newborn baby out downstairs in the lobby of the hospital. I would say that a guy could drive her home.
What would the patient do about food? Say if the hospital doesn't have any food, the Shabbos nothing.
Right.
They go Friday
So
night.
it's the same. That's the
It's like
same.
the whole-
That's the same question of Monday too. In most cases, there's a bikkur chaylim room. There's something.
this
Where
night,
it's
you never
very
know.
rare someone's mamish not going to have
Say
anything.
in the country,
No.
you go to hospital upstate. There's nothing there. there's
Hashem,
no-
by us now, there's a bikkur chaylim room. There's more food over there than in my house. In all the small houses, the satmira bikkur chaylim, there's sandwiches, there's choleh, there's kugel. Listen, something there is usually there. If there's mamish no food, and she's a chayla, she needs to have food, and you maybe could send with a taxi. And they have to use seichel. Every case is different.
See, but sometimes sometimes they happen that say birthday, you go to the hospital and
Yeah.
they send you back home because she's not ready. So you gotta drive back home or you go.
So it's a good question. So she's not not even in labor, was a mistake.
So it was a mistake.
So it was a mistake. So I want to mention a point which I've never seen in any sefer, and I never heard anyone talk about it. And by me, it's a davar hapashut, as soon as you think about it for a minute. And that is, we assume that when you go to the hospital, and the hospital says you could go home, that the hospital is saying that you're not in a sakana. If a person's in a sakana, they belong in a hospital, and when the hospital says go home, they're telling you, you're not a chayla sheyesh b'sakana. The doctor said I should go home. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. Right? If you look through all the categories of chayla sheyesh b'sakana, not categories, right? But all the classifications of what's called a chayla sheyesh b'sakana has nothing to do with what a modern doctor necessarily will call sakana or not. It should belong in a hospital or not belong in a hospital. Right? So you have a person who has a pneumonia, and they're in the hospital, and they start them off on IV antibiotics, and after a day or two they say, and now you'll go home, and in your house, sometimes they put a PIC line, and you can get antibiotics at home. Sometimes they give you by mouth a prescription, and you continue taking antibiotics in your house. Would anyone think that the person with pneumonia is called a chayla she'ein b'sakana? The person's for sure, al pi halacha, the person is still 100% a chayla sheyesh b'sakana, even though the hospital said that you could be home. You don't need to be in a hospital for this sakana that you are trying to mitigate. You could take care of it at home. And this is very, very, very often the case with people being sent home from the hospital, that they're 100% al pi halacha a chayla sheyesh b'sakana. And they could go home even with the yid. I mean, if there's a guy readily available, gesundheit, go home with a taxi the same way you would go home in the weekday, you would go home with a taxi, l'chayra. So go home with a taxi, but if there's no taxi available, so a yid could even drive you home. You're still a chayla sheyesh b'sakana just because you're going to be taken care of at home. And I b'didiyava of the taka, I'm remembering now that I once, my Zayda, whose yahrzeit is today, business, and I was just coming from the Beis HaChaim, Mordechai Matul Rifkin, Alav Hashalom, fell once in 770. He broke his ankle. He twisted going down the little ramp in the back of 770. Friday night, he twisted his ankle, and he broke his foot. And first he said he doesn't want to go to the hospital, and we said you have to. So then finally he said, well, ask Dr. Feldman. If Dr. Feldman says I need to go to the hospital, I'm going to go to the hospital. It's actually a good example of a question: is it a choleh sheyesh b'sakana or not? You have a broken foot. Is it a major pikuach nefesh or not? It's debatable, right? So he said, ask Dr. Feldman. Called up Dr. Feldman. Dr. Feldman got all angry. He said, of course, it's a big sakana, and he must go to the hospital. And after they're going to take care of him in the hospital, and they're going to want to send him home, tell him that he should go in a car home, and if there's no one available, I'll come drive him home. For an old man to be with a broken foot in the hospital, extra, he said, there's a chash of a blood clot, and there's a chash of a ear fat embolism, all kinds of things, and it's a big sakana, and in his eyes, a davar a pashat that to go, and even after it's casted, and they want to send him home, that's still a choleh sheyesh b'sakana.
What's the sakana of staying extra in the hospital versus being home?
They're not going to let. So for the Yeldis, for example, they're very used to it. It's a comfortable room. You're not with sick people, and they know from experience that you're going to want to stay. And they look at the doctors, often they're even Yiddish doctors. They know that you're going to stay, and they're going to let you stay. But a person to stay in an emergency room, first of all, they're often not going to let, because in the emergency room they need the beds. It's not need the room.
Stay outside.
So that's what he was saying, that for a 90-year-old in pain with a broken foot to be standing outside is pashat sakanas nefashis. That was exactly his point. Anyhow, so that's the nekuda. That just because the hospital said go home doesn't mean that that's the. So often you could go pashat with a yid and and it's a choleh sheyesh b'sakana 100%. The person just had surgery. Right? They're getting faster and faster to throw the patients out and send them home. I'm getting quotes sometimes from people who came back from the hospital with a huge open wound and has to be packed and unpacked. They don't even give them proper instructions. They tell them, here's a package of gauze, and you're going to come home in 12 hours, you're going to take off this one, and you're going to rebandage it, and you go, they call Hatzalah in the middle of the night, and they say, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And they have gauze, bandages, a big hole in the stomach this big, and they're supposed to put in gauze and take out gauze. She would die 3 times just trying to figure out what she's supposed to do. But the hospital said, go home. That's a choleh sheyesh b'sakana. It's mamish yesh b'sakana 100%. Speaking about going home and about the Hatzalah members going home, which you touched on before. So here there's two nekudas. One is that if the Hatzalah members will be told that if they're going to go to the hospital, they're going to have to stay in the hospital, right? So there's the heter of hitiru seifan mipnei tchilasan, right? There's a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that a miyaledes, a chaya, the Mishnah calls it a chaya, that people who go to be made in Bezdin, that there's a new levana, they should be made. They're allowed to be mechal Shabbos, and they're allowed to go. And if necessary, it's not a safe place, they could go back. And the Mishnah there says also the same din by chaya. Why not a reifa? I don't know why the Mishnah chaps a case of a chaya miyaledes, but that they were matter her to go home. And also, if you go to save a city, soldiers went to help out Bnei Yisrael or in Hatzalah, and you went to help them out, so you could come back. Ubekli zeinam, if you're scared to go back without weapons, you're allowed to go back even carrying your weapons.
I think even if they're not scared, just to keep their weapons, no? That's for sure.
I believe that it's talking there that they're worried, that there's a sadaiga, that there's a fear. Maybe they'll lose the weapons, they'll also be upset, but that's not. I don't think that's necessarily enough to be mechal Shabbos, right? The same way Shabbos is a fire. Don't quote me on it. We'll look it up, Lina. It wasn't the Tantz is what I'm trying to speak about, so I didn't look it up. But you may be right. Al kol panim, that's the heter of hitiru seifan mipnei tchilasan, that if we're going to tell a Hatzalah member that he has to, if it's a patient, you could say that by every patient, like we said before, they may hesitate to go to the hospital if they're not going to be able to go back. That is not enough of a heter, the way most of the Rabbanim say. However, because first of all, a person, it's his own life, you could convince him that you have to go because your life is in danger. If he's such a shaita, he's not going to agree to go because he's worried how he's going to get home, so he has bigger problems. You, if you're persuasive enough, you should be able to explain to them that their life is in danger and therefore they must go to the hospital. And they don't need a heter how they're going to get home. But the Hatzalah guy, okay, the first time when we're young and we're energetic and we go on the call, we'll go Friday night and we'll leave the wife and kids at home and we'll do it happily. But now what happens the second time and the third time? It could happen every Shabbos. Imagine I told you that you're finished, no more Shabbos with your family. Every Shabbos you're going to go to NYU, you have to stay there till after Shabbos. Yarda Teda L'Seif Taita Shaladam, that if someone is dying, okay, I'm ready to give up my Shabbos, but then doesn't sound like such a big emergency. I'm going to start to think twice. Maybe there's a closer guy. You sure I'm the closest? Maybe someone's closer. Maybe they should go. Maybe it's not such a big emergency. And at the end of the day, we are human beings, and eventually it will catch up with you that there will be people hesitating to answer calls. The second heter is that you will be needed potentially to answer another Hatzalah call. It's the same with the ambulance. We have 5 ambulances because we need 5 ambulances. That's why we spend $250,000 for each one, not that it should sit there extra. So if we think we might need it for another emergency, and we might need that Hatzalah member to take another call, so part of your being ready to respond to another emergency is to get back from the hospital as quickly as possible. Now, the question becomes, why can't we have a guy bring the ambulance or the Hatzalah members back? Mela going to the Hatzalah call, so you're in a rush. You start looking for a guy, you want to go as quickly as possible. However, now you dropped off the patient, took care of it, now you have to get home, it's true. We want you to be back home and be comfortable and alle gute Sachen. But why can't we get Jack and Johnny and pay them $50 an hour to be sitting? And whenever there's Hatzalah call, they should drive back the Hatzalah members to their house, and bring back their car and bring back the ambulance. And in many neighborhoods, that is actually what they do. If you go to Borough Park, and you go to Williamsburg, and you'll go to Muncie, and you go to Kiryas Yoel, and you'll go to many from areas, they call them 90s. They gave them the number 90. That means that they are Goyim. Sometimes they're EMTs, sometimes they're former police light, so they are a little familiar with how operations and ambulances and things work, and they drive back. In Flatbush, when they asked Reb Moshe Feinstein about having this idea of having Goyim, so he was very against it. Moshe Lechlal, one of his tremendous milas was that when he paskined the shaila, he didn't just paskin the shaila the way you're asking it now. He looked how it's going to evolve in a few years from now. For example, when microwave ovens came out, so there were people who had a taina that maybe that's not called derech bishul. There's no fire, there's no flame. You put a thing in a microwave, it's true, it got hot and it cooked, but there's no fire. So maybe that's not called bishul. So for certain halachas, there might be differences whether it is or not called bishul. So they went to Reb Moshe and they told him that maybe this should be called not derech bishul. So he said, I'll say it's not derech bishul. It's a new technology, and nobody has it yet, so it's not the derech. He says, wait 5 years. If you can, something that takes usually an hour, and you could push a button and be ready in 2 minutes, he says, wait 5 years, there'll be a machshir like this in every single kitchen. Guess what? I don't know if it was 5 years, or it was 6 years, or it was 10 years, but today there's like a milchika one and a fleishika one in most kitchens. So before he paskined, he always looked ahead a little bit of how things will evolve. And I can tell you from experience that in places when they started with this Shabbos guy to come back, then what happened? We're going to talk soon that some situations are not a chayla sheyesh be'sakana. So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to ask a guy to do the malacha for you. So if you have a guy sitting in that Hatzalah garage, so it's perfect. Why? Only for coming back. Why can't he take someone who has to go, but it's not a sakana? Why can't he take that person? Chanami. And I hear it happening all the time. But what's a sakana and what's not? So very often, I heard, a member told me once from another neighborhood that he had a patient who had abdominal pain, they had pain in their stomach, and he made a cheshbon that, maybe it's not a serious thing, probably it's not such a serious thing. So I called the guy and I asked the guy to take them to the hospital. Makkah shel Choleh, you look in Shulchan Aruch, there's a hava minute to say that that's called a Choleh she'ein bo sakana. It's a davar pasha, that could be a catastrophic thing that needs surgery as soon as possible. So once you start going down that slope and you have goyim, so the guy could do this and he could do this and he could do that. So I think l'chayda that's part of it. Part of it was also, and that this is being recorded, but when you keep things involving only Yidden, things tend to go smoother than when you have to start explaining to the whole world everything that you're doing and why you're doing, and v'day l'mevin, that it can sometimes bring to complications when you invite in others who don't necessarily understand Torah and understand everything that we're doing. But now I want to point out something that
Do they bring them with them in the ambulance on the way there? Or they sit in the hospital?
every place has, I don't know what the exact setup is, it probably
So which
depends how
kehillas
far.
are still going the old way?
So Flatbush and all the Manhattan neighborhoods,
Queens, Far Rockaway.
Queens also. Queens and Far Rockaway do not have goyim, to the best of my knowledge, and Crown Heights doesn't. Basically, it's the Chassidish world against the more Litvish world, and we fall in the Litvish side in this case, and I'm going to show you why.
We're based on information?
I mean, everyone will follow the mission,
No, I'm
right?
asking, that's the Lubavitcher was asked after? Or?
L'chayre, that's what it is, but I'll show you if you open up
When
the
did it start?
the Alter Rebbe.
When did they start being machmir?
I don't know when the first goyim were brought.
This wasn't until the years, like everyone used to rely on the mission, right? They weren't machmir.
I don't know when when the first neighborhood decided that they should bring in the 90s, and I'm not sure. I could find out. I discussed it. There's a sefer called Madrich L'Chevra Hatzalah. It was put out by a Flatbush Hatzalah member. He was the executive director for many, many years of Hatzalah. His name was Reb Mechel Hendler. And I just had a conversation with him in the morning. As I was preparing this share, I had a quick conversation with him. And we discussed this and that how this evolved, and we spoke about maybe making an updated madrich, because there's many aspects of technology that have now changed. That would be kedai to revisit those things. So I have a choice now to tell the dispatcher, which hospital I went to, or that I'm back, or what happened. I could use my radio. I can now use my cell phone. I could type in on an app on the phone. There's things which there wasn't, the technology wasn't around when this madrich was put out. It's very nicely done, with Mara Mekaimis and everything. And it was very interesting. He told me that he gave out a sefer recently, on Hilchas Brachas, and he says, and I quote, there a Maisa with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says, it's not bad for a Chaim Berliner. He was saying on himself, he held very much from Lubavitch and from the Rebbe. But I have a question for you now. So you sit and you learn, and whenever there is a Shaila 2 days, the Alter Rebbe usually brings the two opinions, and what does he say? So what should you do? V'haminig Svara Rishayna, and the minig is the Svara Achrayna. He tells you, we don't know what to do. What do? You go look what your father did, and that's what you do. So here is a fascinating thing in Siman Shin Chav Ches, which we're learning over here. Sif Yud Gimel is a long sif, and he brings here a big discussion. Halacha is that you have to be Mechal Shabbos for Tzerich Pekuach Nefesh. You have to do Al Yudei Gedolei Yisrael. What's Taj Gedolei Yisrael is itself two opinions. What's called Gedolei Yisrael. Most paskim say that it means a gadol, a grown bar mitzvah yid. The Rambam has a shtickle chiddush that Gedolei Yisrael means kipshute. Gedolei Yisrael, like the Chachamim, like the Rav should be the one to go if he's qualified to be Machal Shabbos. Should be through the Gedolei Yisrael, the Chachamim. But most paskim say it means through a gadol, through an adult over bar mitzvah. Male preferably, whatever the hasbara is there. And why? So Taisa says the reason is because a yid is going to do, why not through a guy? So a yid is going to do, pikuach nefesh is going to be mifakeach in the best possible way. He knows he's doing a mitzvah. He's going to do it mithen to mitfis. The Rosh says a second reason that at the machshile la'asid lave, right? You're going to come to, you're going to have a matzah pekuach nefesh, and you're going to go look for the guy, you're going to call the guy, so now there's a guy available. But what happens next time? They're going to think, oh, last time it was a matzah pekuach nefesh, we had to go look for a guy. Now we also have to go look for a guy, and there could be a delay. So b'meila, you have to do it right away through a yid and dafke through a gut. Now, what happens? The yid's sitting and the guy is sitting. Yeah, happens now every day. You have an aide next to the patient. I'm sitting there, a guy, and you need to do something, whatever it is that you need to do. You need to put on the machine for the machine for the nebulizer to turn on, and you could do it. Or you have a guy sitting, being paid every hour to sit there and help out. You could tell him, please turn on the machine. Now, both things don't apply. There's no delay. There's no better or worse. You're watching. You're seeing that it's going to be done in a proper and a good way. You're supervising, so everything's going to be done just as well. So what's the ikuv to say that it should be done through a yid after? Why shouldn't the guy do it? And okay, we're going. So we're going there. Yeah. So that's where we're going. If the Raviyah, if I'm not mistaken, is the Rama brings it, but who is he quoting? He's quoting the Raviyah. It's brought in there, Zeru and the Mertcha, that he's saying that Taket, the minig here, the minig b'medinas elu, is to be machmer, because there's no dichin, there's no ikov, everything's going to be done right away, and it's going to be done properly, so you should be done through a guy. Who's chaylik? The Taz, right? The Taz is chaylik, and the Taz says what we just said before. No, that since next time they're not going to remember that it was because there was a guy sitting there. They're only going to think that there had to be, only going to remember that it had to be done through a guy, and then they're going to go look for a guy, which is going to cause a delay. Now, looking now to Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, a very interesting thing. Now, the Rebbe brings the minig b'medinas elu here in the end of Tav Kuf Tzadik Zayin, page Tav Kuf Tzadik Zayin. V'ha'ikr kisvara harishayna. Really, you're allowed to be mekel, right? Like Reb Chaim used to say, he's not mekel in Hilchos Shabbos, he's machmer in pekuach nefesh. As they say from Reb Chaim Brisker. He's not mekel in Hilchos Shabbos, he's machmer in pekuach nefesh. So ikir kisvara rishayna, that the way the Taz says that you should do through a yid. V'afal pikein haminig b'medinas elu kisvara achrayna. Like the minig is, all the Ashkenazim ferzach like the Rama. The minig was to be machmer, to use the guy. How often do you find in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch that the minig is like this, and better to go against the minig? I don't know if there's another time in the whole Shulchan Aruch that the minig is like this, and avol tov to not do the way the minig is. And he paskins like the Taz, and he says that you should do it through a yid. And even if you dafka want to be machmer, so you have to make an announcement. You should make a public disclaimer and say, everyone should know, the only reason I'm asking the guy to do it is because the guy is sitting here and there's no delay. And next time, if there's going to be no guy available, make sure to do it yourself quickly and don't go looking for a guy.
This lashon is the Taz to make that clear.
Yeah. The Eitzah comes from the Taz. He says, I'll call upon him. Yeah, you're right. But this inyan to go against the minig is fascinating. We have 5 more minutes. What time are we supposed to go to? So we have to touch on this inyan, till 2. We have to talk a little bit about. There's a beautiful sikha also. I'm going to just tell you where to look, and you'll learn it yourself. In Chelik Chav Zayin, could be most of you saw it already. Yeah, in Achari Meis, Chelik Chav Zayin, the 3rd sikha is on the whole inyan of Pikuach Nefesh and the limud of where you learn it out from, and why dafke, the main beautiful part of why dafke by Shabbos. Since all the mitzvahs we say that except for the 3 big ones that they're deicha Choleh kula. So why dafke by Shabbos is there a whole tararam and a whole hoo-ha that by Shabbos you be mechal Shabbos in order to save a life. And the Rebbe talks there about that the whole inyan of Shabbos is ois here. It's a ois of chavivos of the Eibishter to a yid. And the Eibishter is saying that, and that's the same thing of why is Pekuach Nefesh Deicha Choleh Kula. The Zelben Nekuda, the Eibishter says, I love every single yid so much that I say, put aside my Torah in order to help a yid. Right? So by you going Shabbos and being Mechal Shabbos, you're being Mechazik the Ois. You're doing the same thing of Shabbos. You're showing the Chavivos of a yid. So it's not Deiches Shabbos, fakert, you are being Mekayim the same Nekuda of Shabbos. Okay, now I want to talk a little about some different examples of what might be called a sakana, what might not be a sakana, and what there might be a suffix, let's call it, right? That is the halacha there is that even for a suffix you're mechal Shabbos, not only for a vadai pekuach nefesh, even for a suffix pekuach nefesh. What's called a suffix?
And before we go, I just wanted to ask something.
Yes.
When the Hatzalah members go in the ambulance, they leave their car near the house.
Mhm.
So then they could also take their car home and they come back.
It's the same nekuda that if you're going to have another call, you need to have your car available. Otherwise, if it's a nice weather and it's not inconvenient to leave your car there, I have done it sometimes when it was very close to the end of Shabbos, and it's very unlikely in this half hour I'm going to need my car, maybe to leave it over there. But generally speaking, because we go with this mahalach that you might need it, you might have another emergency in 5 minutes. There were times I went from one cardiac arrest straight to another cardiac arrest. You might say it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you're going to walk. In a cardiac arrest, you don't have time. A choking cardiac arrest, you don't have it. You don't have 5 minutes.
When it comes to like turning off the car, all these things, everything's kudosh, or you try to do things with shit?
They do. It is recommended to do through a shinoi. Reb Zalman Shimon, Reb Shlomo Zalman holds that turning off the car is not a Isser Deraisa. So preferably, if I remember, before Shabbos I push the button that the lights don't go on and off when I open the door. Right? There's a button so you could disable that the lights shouldn't go on and off, and then just turning off the car, you could do it with a shtickle shinoi, it's avadagut, and he holds it's b'chlal not a Isser
The light
Deraisa.
stays on all Shabbos?
Huh? No, fakert.
It doesn't go on.
Doesn't go on, not the headlights. The headlights, you have everything that's for safety you need, but inside the car, those lights stay off. You open the door, they stay off, and you close and it stays off the whole time. So I have to admit that I went online to a website this morning where Halacha, a guy who does a very nice job, I can't remember the name of it this second, maybe I'll look it up, and most of it was very well done, it's nicely done, and there's something there which really irritated me actually, and he didn't mean it, he's a Rav, he's not a doctor, but l'cheri, he should have had a doctor or a Hatzalah member, someone should have read it before he goes and publishes it for the whole world. So he's starting to give examples of what's a matzav of pekuach nefesh. So he says, if a person might be having a stroke, everyone admits someone has signs of a stroke, could be pekuach nefesh. A person might be having a sign of a heart attack. For example, he says someone who's having sharp chest pain. Sharp chest pain. I guess maybe to a layman, a heart attack is associated with a sharp chest pain. As from a Hatzalah experience, I could tell you, as is gar fakert. And the people who are having sharp chest pain doesn't mean that it's not a serious thing, but it's very rare that it's coming from the heart. It's dafka the people who are having heart attacks complain that they're having pressure. They feel that their right is squeezing. The idea that it has to be so someone comes away from this thing and he reads that someone having sharp chest pain is in a matzav of pekuach nefesh, comes away with the impression that if someone has a pressure on his chest or not such a sharp chest pain, that it's not a pekuach nefesh. It bothered me so much that I sent him a comment. I hope that it will get to him, and he should fix it. It's the opposite of what he's trying to do. He's trying to make awareness of pekuach nefesh deiches Shabbos. He shouldn't be hanishal hareza meguna. So he's doing right. He's publicizing that his pekuach nefesh is very important and that whatever. And comes out from it something which is gar fakert. People who have, so those are dvarim achi pshutim, right? If someone was choking or a heart attack or a stroke or all these things are very pashut that it's sakanas nefashos. But I would ask you, let's say someone who has asthma, and they come to you and they say that it feels like they're wheezing, and it happens to them many times when they have asthma, they take their medicine and they get better. And now, either didn't get better, they don't have their medicine. I can tell you, Tishrei, there's always archim who come and say they forgot their machine, their puffer, they left it at home, and what they call Hatzalah. So what do you think? Is this a pekuach nefesh? It's not a pekuach nefesh?
Sure it is.
Sure it is. Someone who's wheezing and has trouble breathing, and how often does an asthmatic get worse and worse, and the more they wait, the harder it gets to treat. And certainly we, as Hatzalah members, have responded to people who were critically ill and even Rahman al-Islam passed away from a severe asthma attack. Let's say allergic reactions. Yeah, what happens if someone has an allergic reaction? Would you think that it's they tell you they're allergic to peanuts, and they ate the peanuts now, and they're starting to feel itchy, starting to get a little bit of a rash. What do you think about that?
There are allergic that's just that isn't, no?
Huh?
Allergies that
That's
are
allergy.
yeah,
Just
someone
it
eats
depends,
cheese
does it, yeah.
and just has some reaction, but it's never leads to the growing matter. Peanuts can have a lot of severe cases.
Yeah. So this is one of the cases where you can't become a doctor. You can't become a doctor. You just have to know, is it possible that people have allergic reactions and are in a matzav of pekuach nefesh, and some of them die? 100%. I had a young child, a 9-year-old child, Nebach, we worked on her, and she passed away in my hands. If you ever saw that, anyone who will have one pimple on the nose from smelling a peanut, you'll never take a chance in your life, and you'll say, you know what? I'm not a doctor. I know that an allergic reaction could lead, chas v'shalom, to a matzav of sakana. It's not my job to be a doctor. It's my job to say, call Hatzalah, let them figure out if it's a sakana or not. And even if we'll come and we'll say that it was not a sakana, and you didn't have to go to the hospital, you get a mitzvah for calling, and the Hatzalah member gets a mitzvah for coming. Right? That you're supposed to. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, for a suffix of pekuach nefesh, you're supposed to be machal Shabbos. And if you start, huh?
What about carrying medications before it happens? Like EpiPen. If you know you have a...
It's very hard to address every kind of situation. Some medications is no problem to wait a few days, nothing will happen. You have to ask a doctor if you're not sure. People take medicine for their cholesterol. It takes months until that actually has an effect. If you miss a couple of days, nothing's going to happen. Then there's people who are taking it for blood pressure, and all of a sudden they miss one pill, and their blood pressure goes through the roof. It's for sure a sakana. You have people who are seizure patients who would take medication not to have seizures, could miss one dose, and boom, they could be having a seizure, and it's for sure a matzav of sakana from missing one pill. So that's every case is a little different, and if you're not sure, you pick up the phone, call the doctor. One of the very common questions that comes up is about stitches. Person gets a cut, and it's Shabbos, Friday night, it's Shabbos, what do we do? So I want to give you a little bit of information. I think it's worth for people to have a general idea that if you're comfortable that you remember what I said, I think you could rely on it. And if not, then you'll have to call either a Hatzalah member or the doctor. Usually, if a person has a cut, even if it's bleeding and you put direct pressure, you take gauze pads, tissues, napkins, your hand if you don't have anything else, and you hold strong pressure wherever the bleeding is coming from, it for 5 minutes, not every few minutes. Oh, did it stop? Every time you do that, you're pulling off all the clots that started to form, and the whole process could start again. So, but keep it for 5-10 minutes strong, straight the whole time. Almost always the bleeding will stop. Now, you have a few minutes that it's not a matzav bohu, maybe it is a sakana, maybe it's not, but for sure a few extra minutes is not going to be life and death. And now, if possible, this Hatzalah member lives down the block. I'm very against it. I don't think when someone's having difficulty breathing and they're having chest pain that you should go look for that Hatzalah member down the block. He could be in Brazil, punkt for Shabbos, and you go, you waste the time, and he's not here, and it's a call the number. If he's here, he's going to hear it on the radio. He'll come right away. And if not, the next closest guy is going to come, and maybe you need medics and an ambulance, and everything will happen while you're wasting time going to look. But that's not the same as someone who had a cut, and you put pressure, and it's not bleeding anymore, and you want to know if it needs stitches or not. The Choleh yeser that it has to be stitched within 6 hours. The Machmirim in right say that you have to stitch and it's true in some cases on a finger or on a foot, on the hands and the feet. They want it to get stitched within 6 to 8 hours. But for sure, a few minutes is not going to make a difference. If the doctor lives down the block, go knock on his door. If he'll answer the door, if he's home, and he'll tell you if it needs or it doesn't need, if it can wait or it can't wait. It's very rare that it's a matzav bohol that there's not a few minutes. Now, if you tried, you don't have a Hatzalah member, you don't know where there's a Hatzalah member, and you're not sure, then of course, like every other suffix, then you have to call, and a Hatzalah member will come, and they'll tell you if they think it needs, or if it doesn't need, or if it can wait, or if it can't wait. But the rules are like this. On hands and feet, the blood supply is very limited. How much blood is getting to a person's finger. Unlike the amount of blood that's getting to somebody's face, for example, where there's a huge supply of blood. That's why they tend to bleed in most cases much more when you have a cut on the face. Now, even though it sounds more scary that there's more bleeding, but for the situation of infection, it's actually a benefit. The more blood supply, the richer the blood supply, the less chance of an infection. And the reason you need to stitch something within a certain amount of time is because the more you wait, the more bacteria start to accumulate inside the wound. And then when you close it up and bacteria starts to grow inside, then you end up with an abscess and a terrible infection. So therefore, if you come to a doctor and you say that you cut your foot yesterday and you want him to stitch it, he's going to say, I'm sorry, you were supposed to come yesterday. Today, I can't stitch it anymore. We'll put a Band-Aid and we'll put antibiotic ointment. We're going to hope that it doesn't get infected. If it gets infected, we're going to use antibiotics, or maybe he'll give you antibiotics right away. But he's not going to want to stitch it. On the face, most places on the face can wait up to 24 hours safely. Right? So if a kid falls and they have a cut in the middle of the forehead and needs stitches, almost in every case, it could wait till after Shabbos, but not more. If it's Friday night, you wait till Matzah Shabbos. As soon as you make Havdalah, you immediately go to find out where's the best place to go and get it taken care of. If you want to do it more quickly than that, then you should probably do it through a guy. There's probably very little reason to take a cosmetic situation, a cut on the forehead, even though it's going to need stitches, to do it through a yid, dafka on Shabbos, when all the plastic surgeons say that it could wait till Matzah Shabbos. Exceptions are places where there's cartilage, the places on the face where it's not flesh, it's cartilage, the ears, right? There's a certain chaymer called cartilage. It's not fleshy. The same thing as the nose is not, right? Parts of the nose that are made out of cartilage, they're more like a finger. They don't have a rich blood supply. We want those to be lips as well. For another reason, we want those to be taken care of within around 6 hours. So then, you have no choice. If you could go with if there's a doctor available that will do it, then on Friday night, for example, you can't wait till after Shabbos if there's a significant risk of infection, meaning it's a real cut that needs definitely, the Hatzalah guys or a doctor or someone said it needs to be stitched, it can't wait till after Shabbos. So, very often can be done through a guy. You could have a guy drive you with a taxi to the hospital or to the doctor's office or to the urgent care or to wherever you need to go. And again, if it's on the face, almost always it could wait till after Shabbos, and you could go after Shabbos to get it taken care of and get it stitched.
It's just a pure cosmetic issue on the 24-hour period. Is a cosmetic issue that they're not going to be able to anywhere close it up properly?
So no, again, after the time frame within which it's supposed to be stitched, if you didn't do it, then you run the risk of infection. So you need to somehow make sure that you're getting it taken care of and addressed within the proper time allowed.
On the hands and feet, they have a different amount?
Yeah, 6 to 8 hours is the cutoff on fingers and toes.
This is all for infection, not for cosmetic.
So the problem is that once I say that it needs to be closed because it's not going to look good, it also needs to be closed in most cases because of the risk of infection as well. Very often the two go together. I wanted to also point out that in Shulchan Aruch he's mechalik between sakanas nefashos and sakanas aver. Almost all the paskim today say we are not smart enough to know a chilik between sakanas aver and sakanas nefashos. You got an infection on a finger, it's already sakanas nefashos. The person could become septic. It took hundreds of patients to hospital who were septic. Means they had an infection. It started as a local infection, and it spread to the whole body, that the whole body is now involved in this infection that's called sepsis. My own father passed away alav Shalom, passed away from sepsis, and it's ma'asim b'chol yom. One of the most common emergencies that we deal with is a sepsis, that the person became infected. And so any infection, and therefore, when we find something called sakanas aver, is almost 99.9% of the time dealt with as sakanas nefashos.